Networking and marketing made simple is for you, the business owner that has a product, service, or message that you truly believe in. My name is Scott Aaron, and each week we'll take a behind the scenes look at real world networking and marketing tactics while leveraging LinkedIn to get what you have in front of many more people. Thanks for spending time with me, and let's get started. Hey everybody, this is Scott and welcome back to another episode of Networking and Marketing Made Simple. Super excited for today's episode. I have Brian Galicia for you guys, and no pressure, but this guy is the real deal. He is a LinkedIn top voice. He's also a best-selling author, and not only is he a best-selling author, but he's a best-selling author for a LinkedIn sales-focused book. He's a keynote speaker, and he's the global partnership sales leader at Microsoft. So I really want to hone in on that, because the fact of the matter is that without connection, without networking, there are no opportunities, which means there are no opportunities for sales. And I think, what Brian and I want to do today is kind of debunk what a lot of people think and feel LinkedIn is, that they're spraying and praying, they're just connecting and messaging. So there's a lot to dive into today, and I don't want to waste any more of your time. So Brian, welcome to today's episode.
Yeah, Scott, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. Apologize, my voice is a little hoarse. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, but I wanted to make sure that Scott and I had an opportunity to save this time that we had to really showcase and talk about the value of LinkedIn and what it can bring, because I think both of us can share some really good stories for anyone who's on the fence or like, to what Scott was saying, I don't know about LinkedIn. Is it professional? Is it personal? Is too much information there? All this stuff out there will hopefully demystify some of that stuff, because I think both of us will attest to the fact that if you do things in a certain way, you will get value. And we're true testaments of how that can work.
100%. And, the fact is that, you're approaching, and I'm by no means trying to age you here. You're approaching 2 decades at Microsoft, which,
Yes.
Not only means that you've been dedicated to one of the largest Fortune 50 companies in the world, but also you were there in real time during that transition period from when, LinkedIn was pre-Microsoft, where now
Yes.
LinkedIn is post-Microsoft. So let's talk about the early days, going back to right at, I would say, that inception point where LinkedIn, bought out Microsoft bought out LinkedIn. And, I think you and I can both agree, I still talk to people today in 2024, almost 10 years after LinkedIn has been purchased by Microsoft, and people still think it's like monster.com. It's where people, you just go to get a job. And again, back in the day, yes, it was a lot of job seeking and job recruiting, but it's completely changed. So let's talk about the early days. And this is when you were at Microsoft. So how impactful for you was it to see the changes that happened to LinkedIn with the merger and with the, I would say, the buyout of LinkedIn from Microsoft?
Yeah, no, thanks, Scott, for the question. And then this, again, by no means, there are going to be different points of view across the Microsoft thing, and this is just my specific journey. I would say for LinkedIn, you have to be aware, and you hit it spot on, Scott, in regards to when LinkedIn was founded back in very early 2000s. That whole premise was, of course, it was a platform to not only connect professionals, but to connect them to jobs. And so that's hasn't changed. That's still core to what LinkedIn does, but LinkedIn has many different avenues to go drive that opportunity. And so when you think about the opportunity for anyone, a metric that I always share recently now is that there are over 1 billion, let me repeat that again, 1 billion people on the platform around the world, which is astonishing. That's a lot of people. And so when you think about that, what's the purpose of it? Well, first and foremost, even when we acquired LinkedIn, LinkedIn has this very solid premise at the very beginning, which is it's members first. And what does that really mean? Well, it means that your privacy of data is yours. And that's super important. I always share that in conversation because we all are putting in information because it's up to us as to what we decide we want to disclose to people. And so with that information comes a lot of responsibility so that other platforms that might have some other mechanism to share data, LinkedIn, and as LinkedIn is part of Microsoft, that is not something that we ever will go outside of. So that being said, when you think about LinkedIn and the areas of revenue or opportunity, it does come with jobs because there is a big revenue stream that comes through what we call talent. Uh, the opportunity, if you're a recruiter, you have access to information to then identify job seekers for to go do that. The area that you and I also have a really great passion about is sales solutions, or what people kind of know as sales navigator. And I would say that that's a huge opportunity because if you're a seller, and that's probably part of the premise of why I co-authored a book, one of the things that people don't realize, especially people in a selling profession, is that LinkedIn is one of the best places to understand what's happening, what people are doing, to then create a warm connection or an opportunity to show that you can add value. And the thing that we'll go into probably in more detail, Scott, is that danger zone that people think, oh, I'm just going to use LinkedIn as if I'm doing the same thing on email or doing the same thing in a phone conversation. And I would argue that's not what the purpose is. The purpose is to really help identify commonalities or taking the time to build that digital engagement so that you are earning the right to actually have a conversation back and forth. And one of the places when we think about starting this is the fact that when we got connected, we didn't know each other. But how did the conversation start? It started with a common connection, Casey Jaycox. And so you know Casey, I know Casey, and he is one of those amazing people. Not only is he a podcast person, but he also wrote a book as well that creates the connection because it's about relationships. And so at the end of the day, pre and post Microsoft, to answer your question and kind of wrap it up, pre and post Microsoft, what I continue to see is that the opportunities that LinkedIn provides is still abundant. And a lot of it, even regardless of Microsoft owning LinkedIn, you'll probably notice that we have not done that much to change the culture of LinkedIn. And what I mean by that is you'll notice that LinkedIn employees do not have a Microsoft alias. Well, you may or may not know that. They're purposely called LinkedIn for a reason because we did not say Microsoft LinkedIn. It is LinkedIn for a reason because of the again, the goodwill and the things that they've done to build that over time. We're just a steward of ensuring that we're providing the level of capability so that where it's appropriate, are there places and hooks into doing certain things to elevate what LinkedIn is doing as part of the Microsoft portfolio of solutions and companies. So I'll pass it back to you, Scott, because hopefully that was a long-winded way to say is like there's been so much value, and we've tried to make sure that we're really good stewards of ensuring that we don't impact what LinkedIn has been doing, but we're providing the value on top of what they've been doing so that it allows, again, even more value for the people like you and me that are using it.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Well, I appreciate great detail. So I like long-winded answers. I give long-winded answers because we're storytellers. You got to paint a picture, right? It creates more context and allows people to, really paint that virtual picture in their mind so they can understand and connect the dots from, point A to point B. But I think you made a really good point that, you know, the sales portion of LinkedIn is something that I want to kind of hone in on. And I've been preaching this for the last 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
I opened my LinkedIn account in 2009, started really leveraging it in 2013, end of 2012. And obviously, it's my main platform. And yes, it's social media, but it's really not.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn is one of those, I would say, unicorns. And I will use that. It is a unicorn because I keep trying to explain to people how unbelievably unique LinkedIn is because, one, most people on LinkedIn are in a decision maker role. And for those
Mm-hmm.
that didn't know this, 88%, so 880 million people out of the 1 billion people that are there are in some sort of decision making role, whether that's on an individual basis or in some sort of corporate ladder position. So that means the other, 12%, you're there to provide that service or
Mm-hmm.
bridge that gap between, person A to person B. And I think the other big thing that people need to understand is that unlike other social platforms where you really can't control things because
Mhm.
I find it very funny when people try to compare LinkedIn to like Facebook and Instagram.
Mhm.
Meta and LinkedIn cannot be polar opposites because if
That's
you
right.
look at what Facebook and Instagram are, they are social platforms that it's there. Yes, there's some business going over there, but that's where the business pages come in. But
Mhm.
everything on LinkedIn is business first. It is all about business all the time. And but you have that unique ability with the search engine, and people forget this. LinkedIn is a search engine. It is a way to find the right types of people that you need to A, network with, B, connect with, and C, bridge that gap. And I think you beautifully stated the connection point between you and myself, obviously being Casey, but also the sales side of thing. We both wrote sales books, right? We believe
Mhm.
heavily that sales is part art, part science, and you have to find that little marriage in between the two of those. But we also want to debunk that sales doesn't have to be sleazy. It doesn't have to be
Nope.
spammy. LinkedIn is about the opportunities to connect, collaborate, and network. So let's dive into the sales aspect. You know, people think that they need to get recruiter, navigator, sales, recruiter,
Mhm.
all that stuff in order to create sales on LinkedIn. So just talk about the two different sides of LinkedIn. There is the product side of LinkedIn, premium navigator
Mhm.
recruiter,
Mhm.
versus just the platform itself. And again, some people may need to do one of the solutions and products that LinkedIn
Mhm.
provides, and some people can just use the regular platform and have a ton of success.
That's right. That's right. So, what a great tee up, Scott. So let me deconstruct some of that and go into much more detail. But I do want to touch upon you mentioned because I get this question all the time, like you. What's the difference between all these other social platforms and LinkedIn? And one of the great examples I've done to students too, because the other thing that I've done is do the same things of what you do and educate early in career people to say, how do you use LinkedIn to maximize the opportunity to build relationships so you can land your first job? And so the thing, imagine if you don't. This is a funny example, but I'll just run with it. So donuts on social media. So let's say you're doing something with donuts. I'm a big donut fan, and you think about Facebook or Instagram. With Facebook, it's like I like donuts because you're talking about things on Facebook because you're saying, "Hey, I like this specific thing and I want people to know about it." When you think about Insta and all the stuff on it, it's like, "Here's a cool photo of my donut." And so then you think about, okay, with that, what would you do on LinkedIn? Well, on LinkedIn, the premise is I hope to operate a donut franchise one day. I'm looking for a job at a donut company. My top skills are these things. Here are recommendations from a former donut colleague. So you get the power of it. There's a subtlety difference. But the other thing I do want to say is that LinkedIn is also this opportunity where it's a blend of professional and personal. And I say that because when we go into networking events in a business professional setting, again, pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID, it was a perfect example of this. When we go into conversations and we meet people first time, everyone has a story. And sometimes you have those stories where you're meeting someone and you go, oh my gosh, that's a great conversation. And some other stories where you're like, that's kind of an interesting conversation because it's a one-way conversation. And you and I come from the same cloth where you have to add value. And this will seed into my conversation of what you just said, which is being able to build that engagement because not all the time are you able to meet people face to face. You can't shake people's hand all the time. Sometimes you can, but sometimes you have to rely on the premise of digital engagement to go do that. And so to answer your question, when you think about free LinkedIn, before you get into paid services like Premium or Sales Navigator, you can do a lot of the things that you profess, which is great. Because if you're not following Scott, you should. If you're not following his newsletter, you should. Because there's information as I got connected to Scott, I started to pay attention to some of the things he's writing. And of course, it resonates with me because all the things he's saying is the same stuff that I would say as well, which is if first and foremost, before anyone starts to have a conversation with Scott, with Brian, or whoever it is, the first thing they're going to go do is they're going to open up their mobile device and they're going to type your name in on LinkedIn and they're going to say, who are they? And so often than not, and this even happens at Microsoft, and it's not a dismissal to my Microsoft colleagues, but it's that first age old question. you have to show up like you're adding value. And so it's subtle because people think, oh, Brian, isn't LinkedIn about finding jobs? And so they write everything about themselves. Hey, I did this, I did this, I did this. That's great if you're looking for a job. If you're a professional, like you and me, like again, I've been at Microsoft for a little over 18 years. What I found early stage at Microsoft is I just wanted to have the badge on. Hey, I work at Microsoft. Here's all the amazing things that I've done for myself, which is good if I was early in career trying to navigate to get my next step in my career journey. But now it's more about I want to make sure that I'm adding, because I'm in a partner selling role. I lead a partner sales organization for independent software vendors. And so why is that important? It's because it's about building relationships. And how do we build relationships when we're meeting new people to drive partnerships? They're going to come across my name or my team's name and they're like, well, who's this person? And the thing that I really want to share is it's not about all the accolades and all the stuff that I've done, but it's more of how can I help support someone in their journey so that when they say, hey, Brian, what do you do? I talk about the things that my team and I can help them do. And if they realize, oh, that's actually interesting, I want to learn more, guess what will happen? They start to pay attention to what you start to talk about, because part of it is they want to see, like you, Scott, or me, you look at our LinkedIn profiles, people will probably notice that it's different than some other ones because we're all about adding value first. And then when we start to add value, people start to pay attention. And because of the consistency of what you post and what I post, and it's not just about posting, it's about engagement. It's about a two-way dialogue. And this goes back into my comment of networking. When you go to a networking event, if you're talking the whole time or the other person's talking the whole time and you're not having a conversation back and forth, high probability, you're probably going to leave that conversation because it's a one-way conversation. Who wants to be talked to or talking the whole time? No one wants to have that. People want to feel like we're having right now. You ask a question, I provide a response. I ask a question, you provide a response in a natural manner. And sometimes it's not just professional. It's personal. You want to know your family. Hey, what are your hobbies? What are the things you like doing? What's your background? Is that something blurring the lines of professional? Yes, because we're human. We want to understand each other because I want to build trust with Scott. And the way I build trust is I get to know you. We have common interests, or we find something in common that then allows us to have a deeper conversation that gives us the permission to have a deeper conversation. Sales Navigator, and my final thought, and then I'll pass it back to you, Scott. My final thought is you can do a lot of those things free LinkedIn. People think, oh, I have to pay for all this stuff. You actually don't. And that's part of probably in your book and the book that I co-authored. We talk about that. You don't have to pay for things on LinkedIn. And again, this is weird for me to say that because I want people to buy stuff from LinkedIn for revenue. But irrespective of that, you can do a lot of things with free LinkedIn to maximize that opportunity. Sales Navigator is just that additional thing that gives you more robust stuff to go do when you actually know how to use it. And that's the last thing I'll close out with. A tool is a tool. If you go out and you try to, terrible example, but a simple example. Let's say you're given a shovel and you're like, okay, what do I do with a shovel? And you're using it to be a hammer. That's not what a shovel is intended to go do. You're trying to dig a hole. And if you use it properly, guess what? It's going to save you time because it's digging a hole. But if you're using a shovel to hammer something or to screw something in on a wall, it's the wrong tool. And so that's the thing that I want to hopefully that gives you a little bit of clarity, Scott, on the journey. And I know how you perceive things, and we're aligned on some of the stuff as we were talking and getting to know each other.
Yeah, no, it's a great segue because in my book, I talk about, the free version of LinkedIn, and I still have only used the free version of LinkedIn. And I openly tell people I am not discrediting the products that LinkedIn has to offer via Microsoft, right? I am not discrediting Premium. I am not discrediting Sales Navigator or Recruiter. But what people need to understand is that those products are geared towards specific industries, professions, jobs. So it's not a one size fits all, right? Just like with LinkedIn advertising, which I talk about sometimes as well, people think that they need to pay to play. My whole thought is this: squeeze the juice out of the free and then decide if you have to pay. And some people may squeeze the juice and they, feel like they've done as much as they can and they need to get to that next level. By all means, try it. And that's the other beautiful thing about LinkedIn is you're not locked in anything. You can try premium for 30 days for free. You can sign up for Navigator, Recruiter, cancel after 30 days if you're not using it. So, and they're not going to kick you off the platform. You could still go
That's right.
back and do as you normally do. And I think that's the one thing when someone is taking whatever LinkedIn approach that they have. A couple things that I want to kind of, end on is that, you have to make sure, as Brian stated earlier, it's not about you, it's about how you're leaving those individuals better that stumble upon your profile and then start digging into your content. People are in it for themselves. It's not that they don't care about you, but they care about what's in it for me. If I'm going to subscribe to Scott's newsletter, if I'm going to subscribe to Brian's newsletter, if I'm going to buy Scott's book, if I'm going to buy Brian's book, what am I going to take away from it? And I wrote all my books from the premise of, when someone reads this book, I want them to feel better.
That's right.
Than when they first started reading that book, where they would recommend it to someone else, they would leave a rating and review, whatever the case may be. And I think if you break down the word sales, it really means the relationships that you build. The more quality online relationships that you can create through LinkedIn, the more opportunities are going to come your way. So let's pivot, as we start to wind down. Just share with the audience really quickly your personal feeling about the importance of selling by not selling. And what I mean by this is, people get so hung up on, sending the direct messages, which, do you want 50,000 new dollars a month? Do you want to generate more leads? And even in the content, like selling, buy this, buy that, where I come from, my point of view, where my sales tactic is, it's predicated on the quality of the relationships that I build. So what kind of message can you leave the audience with in regards to how they should be approaching their sales strategy using LinkedIn?
Yeah, no, thanks, Scott. I think the biggest thing, and you hit many of those topics of how you do that, but the biggest thing is it's personalization and coming across as you're adding value, not trying to sell someone something. And I think we all are in this scenario where we come across stuff and we get sold to all the time. How many times do you get a phone call on your cell phone, you don't recognize a number, and you don't pick up? I think we're all in that scenario. Like, if we don't recognize the number, we're never going to pick up, and you leave voicemail, and it's always awkward because the person goes, let me talk about all the things that I do. And they never once took the time to say, hey, by the way, Brian, like I've seen your background. I believe that this is where I can add value because of this is the type of role you have in doing what you said, storytelling. A lot of it is like you can't come across, especially when how many times you get a LinkedIn connection request, and the first thing they do is they sell to you as soon as they connect with you. And I'm like, ah, you and I subscribe to the same cloud. Could you do that? Does it work? I mean, for me, I don't subscribe to doing that. I subscribe to, you build the relationship, you build that trust, and then over time, you're going to start to realize that they're going to come to you for stuff. They're going to start to realize your authority. And that's the thing I'll end on. You have to build authority in adding value. And when you come across, if you're adding that value and you're coming across as adding without someone asking for it, you're just sharing information freely to help them make a decision so that when they are ready to make that call to say, I want to go do whatever it is, buy this service, buy this product, buy whatever it is, you're there because you'll be top of mind. They'll trust that you are that authority because you've built that relationship. And that's about what LinkedIn is about. It's about paying attention to what people are talking about, making it relevant so that when the timing's right, you come across as someone that can add value, not just sell to someone. And that's in your book and in my book, we really try to have that come across because too often than not, it goes back into the premise of how sellers like to sell. They're trying to think about it short term. I need to hit my quota. I need to do these things. I need to get someone on the hook to go buy something today. I get that. Like, I've been a seller. We're all demanded on coin operated on hitting that quota. But the best sellers that I've come across, including myself, is when you add value and you do that at a time, you're playing the long game, and that long game pays off because then you're building the trust in the relationship where people will come back over and over and over again. Because guess what? They have a good relationship with you. What are they going to do? They're going to start talking about you. They're going to say, oh my gosh, I had a great experience with Scott. You should buy his services. Guess what? Well, that happens because they had a good relationship with you. Not that it was a short-term look, it was a long-term view where you build that trust. And so now they trust you so that over time you can go back to the well and say, hey, you know what? I'm looking for this. Can you make a referral for me? Absolutely, because I trust Brian, or I trust Scott. So hopefully that added a little bit of flavor into what you just asked, Scott.
I mean, literally, I could put the stamp of approval right on that
Okay, good.
because it is the lot like I talk about all the time that LinkedIn is like a retirement fund, right?
Yeah,
It's not about what you do today, it's what you do about every day that
yes,
compounds over time. And it is
100%.
that compounded interest example of how you should best leverage LinkedIn. So, Brian, before I get to my final question, tell the audience a little bit about the book that you co-authored, what it's about, what they could
Yeah.
take away from it. Not only that, where they can grab a copy, and so I can throw that in the show notes in the
Yeah,
description.
no, appreciate it. So here's it is. It was co-authored with someone named Melanie Dodaro.
Oh,
She's
I know
Canadian, but
Melody.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Melanie, again, another example where LinkedIn, she wrote a book about LinkedIn and I read it and I was super intrigued by it. And
LinkedIn
I got
Unlocked or
curious.
something, I think. Link.
Yes, link, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. LinkedIn
Yep.
Unlocked. So I reached out to her on LinkedIn and said, hey, you know what? I work at Microsoft, full disclosure. I read this and I think we can up level in V2 to add a little bit more color to an enterprise seller. And it doesn't have to be a Microsoft or someone in technology, it could be to anybody. But you can imagine there's a much bigger audience to not just small business, but to an enterprise seller trying to drive value in it. So we talk about many things, including if you choose to want to invest. And I like what you just said, Scott, is like maximize what you can get for free. And then when you realize, okay, I've done everything I could do for free, let me try out something that to add more value. And that's what we kind of talk about. We also talk about account-based marketing. We also talk about AI because in the day and age, especially now as a seller, if you're not using AI, you should, because man, what amazing opportunity. And again, this is not by any means to use Microsoft Copilot. There's many choices, ChatGPT, Copilot, etc., where you can go out and you can put a prompt that gets some information so that when you go in front of a customer or a buyer, guess what? You have some information that actually is relevant to what's happening in the industry, what's happening to them. And so
Mm.
you can get on Amazon. I'm truly grateful for the people who have gotten a chance to read it because it's now has, I think, over 188 feedback, 4.8 star reviews. And so you can get it a hard copy for those of you like hard copies, or you can get it over a Kindle subscription. And so truly appreciate it. If someone wants to just look at my profile, you'll see it on my profile where you see the book there. And I appreciate giving me an opportunity, Scott, to give that shout out.
Absolutely. And I will put that in the show notes, the description of the episode, and the email that goes out about this. So you guys know exactly where to get the book so you can support it. So, Brian, final question before we
Yeah.
sign off. What does success truly mean to you?
Gosh, I would say it's I'm always about adding value. And I think if I can leave a like for me, my legacy that I always want to leave whenever I decide I'm going to leave Microsoft and retire is that I left it in a better place than when I started.
Mhm.
And so when I say that, that success is enabled through people, through teams, through partnerships, through customer engagement, etc. So that when I leave, people are going to go, "Oh my gosh, the relationship and the trust that Brian provided was amazing." And or the team. And again, it's not just about me, it's about the because I'm a people manager at Microsoft. It's about enabling all these people to achieve what they want to go do and leaving it in a better place than I took it on. So that's what success looks like for me is just making a difference for people and people's lives. Where things like this, we get connected with amazing people. We've never met face to face, Scott, but the fact that what you shared invited me to your platform to go share this stuff, I love it because it gives us an opportunity to blend our professional networks together. So hopefully people who know me will get curious and look at what Scott has been doing in the LinkedIn realm and look at his services, his book, subscribe to his newsletter to go do those things because that's what it's all about. It's about building these networking relationships so that we're all helping others succeed.
I could not agree more. And I do hope that you guys listen to this episode or watch this episode over and over again. So Brian and I can kind of give you these foundational
Yeah,
things that you need to do. So, Brian, I just wanted to thank you again for taking the time out of your day and providing such value to this episode and kind of just reiterating a lot of the messaging that I say. And sometimes it takes an external voice for it to really sink
100%.
in. And I know so many people took so much away from this. So thank you again for being here today.
Yeah, thank you again, Scott. I appreciate it. Have a great one, everybody.
Absolutely. So, again, just want to thank everyone for being here. All the information about Brian and his book will be in the show notes, the description, and the email that goes out about this. Don't forget, please support the podcast. Leave us a rating and review, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And again, I do hope you found this helpful. Love and gratitude, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you could, please support this podcast by hopping over to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or any place that you're listening to this. Leave us a rating and review. Let us know what you loved most and what you would like to hear more of. But also, if you would like to learn how to take your business to the next level, whether it's using LinkedIn or working directly with myself and Nancy in our intimate group coaching programs, you can head over to www.thetimetogrow.com or scottaaron.net to learn more. Thank you again for your support, love and gratitude, and I'll talk to you soon.